Harry Nilsson and Everybody's Talking About It. Thank you for all your emails and your calls. I am going to change the tone of the show a little bit, and you'll understand why in a few moments' time. Just to say that coming up after the 3 o'clock news, we're going to be talking to the farmer and television presenter Adam Henson about his book, Like Farmer, Like Son. It is BBC Radio London, and it's me, Jo Good, in the afternoon, and we're joined now by our assistant editor, David Friend, with some breaking news. David.
Yeah, we're getting reports of an incident outside the Palace of Westminster, the House of Commons, House of Lords, obviously. Reports from the Press Association suggesting sounds similar to gunfire have been heard outside the palace there, and reports that a man with a knife has been seen within the confines of the palace. We've got reports from other news agencies, Reuters, for instance, saying that they believe at least 6 people have been injured on Westminster Bridge outside the Parliament building there. It's very early days. We don't know the full details of what may have happened there. We are getting pictures into the BBC, which apparently show a car crashing into one of the fences around the Houses of Parliament there. We've spoken to the Met. They say they are dealing with an incident. They're looking into what's happening at the moment. Will keep us updated. And obviously we'll keep you updated here on BBC Radio London as we go through this afternoon.
David, thank you. And obviously that is going to affect anyone of you travelling as well. Keep listening to BBC Radio London. We'll have a full travel update in about 8 minutes' time. And of course keep you updated throughout the news, and Eddie when he's on at Drive to give you a more idea of the full story. But at the moment there is an incident on Westminster Bridge. Is it Westminster Bridge, David? Yeah. Yes. So if you're planning on travelling around that area, I would give that a miss at the moment, and we will keep you updated throughout the afternoon here on BBC Radio London. And as I say, coming up after 3 o'clock, we're going to be talking to Adam Henson, who you'll know as a radio presenter and also a farmer. His book is called Like Farmer, Like Son. As I say, he's going to be joining me after 3 o'clock. So we are going to change the mood. We won't continue at the moment talking about the topic we were. Let's just have a bit of music. Lucas Graham and 7 years. It's 5 minutes to 3. You're listening to me, Jo Good, in the afternoon. And as you all have heard, there is a breaking news story over at Westminster Palace. And our assistant editor, David Friend, is here to give us an update. David? Yeah,
just a little bit more information. A major security alert at the Palace of Westminster at the moment. Reports suggesting a man apparently carrying a knife charged through the gates of the palace in front of the yard of the parliamentary compound, so sort of in the open area beneath Big Ben, if you can kind of imagine that open area at the side on the corner of Westminster Bridge there. The reports suggest that 2 people were seen to be lying within Old Palace Yard outside Westminster Hall there, and the political editor of the BBC, Laura Kernsberg, is reporting that one person has been shot, possibly by police there as well. 2 people are reported to be seen lying with Old Palace Yard, as I said, and the House of Commons, which is sitting, has been suspended. And I imagine they are being looked after by emergency services police at the moment in a sense of lockdown, effectively. And reports again immediately before the incident, which happened around 2:45, so about 10 minutes ago, a crowd of passersby were seen to be running from the direction of Westminster Bridge around the corner into Parliament Square. A lot of confusion going on. There'll be an awful lot of things being, appearing on social media, a lot of images appearing on social media and on the news channels, and we will just try and keep you up to date as much as we can throughout the afternoon.
And that yard is heavily securityed, isn't it?
Well, if you think this is, this is the Commons, this is where the MPs sit, the Lords sit. Arguably, this is one of the most secure areas of London, heavily guarded, heavily armed police guard there. So we just wait to see what has happened.
I know that the people in the hut opposite there, because we actually did an OB from very close there, listen to this radio station, or any of you cabbies who are around that area at the time, because you're often our eyes until we get somebody there. So if you are sitting in traffic around that area, if you've got any more detail, or indeed the people that run there, a family that run that little cabin opposite, and you have time to call us, we'd appreciate that. That's 020 722 4 2,000. As we say, you're heading over that bridge, towards that bridge into the centre of London. I would avoid it now because there is going to be quite a lot of gridlock, I should imagine, whilst they sort that out. David, thank you very much indeed. Eddie on at 4, by the way, so he'll have a lot more to fill in on this story, but we will keep you up to date between now and then. In fact, we can now cross over to the BBC Radio London Travel.
Yes, as we've been hearing there from David, because of a security alert, Westminster Bridge is closed and Victoria Street is closed. This is a serious police incident. There's trapped traffic on Westminster Bridge and Parliament Square should be avoided. It's all very, very, very slow in the area anyway because of works for the Strand underpass and works nearby on St Martin's Place southbound. So Westminster is going to be very busy for some time to come, I would say. So Victoria Street is closed between Buckingham Gate and Parliament Square. Westminster Bridge is closed in both directions, so both sides of the river are going to be very busy. There is trapped traffic on Westminster Bridge. Paramedics and emergency services are on the scene of a security alert on Westminster Bridge, Victoria Street, outside the palaces of Westminster. So the advice would be to stay away, if you possibly can, from the Westminster area. More coming up in the news on this story very shortly. Billy Reeves, BBC Radio London. More traffic and travel for you in half an hour.
Online, on digital radio and TV, and on 94.9 FM.
London's radio station.
BBC Radio London.
London's news at 3 o'clock. I'm Lucinda Bowden, and reports within the last few minutes of shots being fired near the Houses of Parliament. At least one person is understood to have been shot outside Portcullis House, and the building is now in lockdown. Scotland Yard said it was called to Westminster Bridge amid reports of several people injured in a firearms incident. Witnesses said a man with a knife had been seen inside the Palace of Westminster. The buildings have now been sealed off. The former BBC journalist Don Brind was inside the palace at the time of the incident.
Walking through between the main Commons and Portcullis House, where all the offices are, there's a sort of walkway that goes underneath Big Ben, and there's the main yard onto the street. As I was walking through, I was aware of some kind of rushing around of people, and then I heard a shot. When I looked very close to the gate, there was a person clad in kind of dark clothing lying on the ground with somebody pointing what I assumed to be a gun at him. A little way away there was somebody in a high-vis jacket who I assumed to be a policeman on the ground, but he appeared to be conscious and talking to somebody, and then very quickly we were all shooed in. Get inside, shouted the security people, and that's really the end of my being an eyewitness.
We will keep you updated on this breaking story throughout the afternoon. Thames Water have been given a record fine of more than £20 million for polluting the River Thames. 1.5 billion litres of raw sewage was allowed to flow into the river between 2013 and 2014. The judge at Aylesbury Crown Court criticised what he called a pathetic state of affairs, saying managers had ignored warnings and risks identified by staff. Marie Deville from the Environment Agency said the fine sent out a strong message.
It is clear from the sentencing today and the judge's powerful comments that the courts take environmental offending very seriously. This record fine and costs of over £20 million sends a signal to all companies that safeguarding the environment is not an optional extra. It is an essential part of how businesses must operate.
A murder investigation has begun following the death of a 19-year-old who was shot while sitting in a car in East London last night. Officers were called to reports of a man unconscious on Ilford Lane. Despite the efforts of paramedics to save him, he died at the scene. There have been no arrests. The Justice Secretary Liz Truss has been rebuked by the head of the judiciary in England and Wales for failing to step in and defend judges when they were criticised in the media over Brexit. The Lord Chief Justice said she had been wrong not to do so. The Ministry of Justice said Ms Truss supported the independence of the judiciary, but she also believed in a free press. And 2 teaching unions have voted to merge. The NUT is joining forces with the Association of Teachers and Lecturers to form the National Education Union. It will be the biggest teachers' union in Europe and the 4th biggest union of any sort in the UK. Now with the roundup of this afternoon's weather, here's Kate Kinsella.
The rain turning a little more showery this afternoon, so some dry spells, especially further south, but still it's going to be breezy and feeling cold. The maximum temperature up at 10 Celsius. Overnight, stay showery for a time. The rain dries out and then it returns before dawn. Minimum temperature 5 or 6 Celsius. For tomorrow, it may be a wet start for some, but that will clear westwards, leaving it dry and sunny for the afternoon.
BBC Radio London, it's 3 minutes past 3.
BBC Radio London.
Joe Good. Weekday afternoons from 1.
Joe Good on London's radio station.
BBC Radio London.
BBC Radio London, it is the afternoon show with me, Joe Good, and there is a bit of a shift, a gear change. Obviously, you'll understand why if you've been listening in the last half hour, and certainly if you've been listening to our bulletins there. There has been an incident at Westminster, which at the moment is focusing on Westminster, the Palace of Westminster and Westminster Bridge. So for all of us here in London, that means travel is going to be severely disrupted. Or also for a lot of people trying to get home, maybe people who've been working in the Palace of Westminster, the phone lines are now open. And you, this is local radio, you are our eyes and our ears. So any of you cabbies out there who are maybe heading or stuck around Parliament Square, as I say, there is a little cabin opposite, exactly opposite where this incident has taken place, who are avid listeners to this radio station. But I think they may well have been evacuated. They sell newspapers and sweets there. If you could call us, the number is 020 722 42. David Friend, our assistant editor, will be giving us updates. And Eddie, who is now being briefed about this because he will come on at 4 o'clock for Drive, will have more on the whole story. Simon Lederman, coincidentally, is in the building. Hello.
I am.
You
Good
weren't
afternoon.
expected to be on air.
I was not.
But as you know, we were going to be talking about farming, actually, Simon, would you believe? And we just thought we'll just change gear because obviously people want to know what's happening. This is, going home time for a lot of people, setting out time for a lot of people who are doing an evening shift. So it's more important we really, at this point, give people details on transport and all the rest.
Yes, it's interesting because where this looks like it's taken place on Westminster Bridge, one of the most secure parts of London, particularly one of the most secure parts of Westminster, for a number of years, as you will know, there have been these very, very large and heavy weight divides between the roadway and pavements. And this is really very, very recent breaking news. Scotland Yard saying it was called to that firearms incident on Westminster Bridge amid reports of several people being injured. And a number of people working for the BBC have made their own points about what they are aware has happened. Laura Kunsberg, the BBC's reporter, said that police told her that someone had been shot. What police are telling us is that it was called to a firearms incident on Westminster Bridge amid reports of several people being injured. And with just one line for now on the travel, suddenly it looks like much of that area is gridlocked currently. Police, we can see on the monitors we have, are stopping buses and cars and taxis from getting through. And Transport for London is saying Westminster Underground Station has been shut at the police request. That is what we know so far.
And of course, Millbank is right by there as well, isn't it? Just along from Westminster. So there are probably people who are heading in and out of there who are going to be on the scene as well. So hopefully we will have more reports as they come through. We will also be doing, at the moment, travel every 15 minutes to keep you up to date. But as Simon says, looking at the screens, you can see at the moment there are buses that are gridlocked. So if you're expecting people home or people coming into work using that route, there is going to be quite a knock-on effect of this. And as I say, this is where you really are at the moment, also our eyes and our ears, as we have reporters heading out there, and we'll catch up to BBC staff who are over there. But a lot of you out in the midst of it all, probably walking towards there, heading over one of those bridges close by, or even indeed if you are around the Parliament Square area, and you could give us a phone call. The number is 020 722 42,000, 020 722 42,000, or you can always email me, joanne.good@bbc.co.uk.
Words coming out from people at the Commons. The Commons leader has said that the assailant was shot by the police. There were various other questions coming out too about what exactly happened on Westminster Bridge. We know that Parliament itself, Westminster and the Palace of Westminster, Parliament itself is on lockdown, but there have been reports of several people being injured in that incident. And what we also know is Westminster Bridge itself is closed. Lots of areas around Parliament Square, traffic is being diverted. And really, you really are in our eyes and ears on this, on the programme this afternoon. Literally breaking news in the last 25 minutes or so here on BBC Radio London. If you are in the area, if you are affected by any of the traffic congestion, and certainly if you are working in the Palace of Westminster and are able to give us a call, we would love to hear from you on 0207 224 2000. Witnesses are saying they heard at least 4 gunshots, but in terms of those people who've been injured, we have not got definitive numbers, although, as I say, we are aware that armed officers are at Westminster and a police officer stabbed at Parliament, says the leader of the House of Commons. I'm just thinking, Simon, the areas that are affected, because Portcullis House is also going to be probably out of bounds as well, and that's... Well, it's a building that's well known to this radio station. We have lots of people who work in there who come in to talk about various things that are taking place. Portcullis House at the moment, I can see it on our screen, that is also out of bounds. And the knock-on effect is all the way down there. I should imagine if you're trying to get into Whitehall or if you're going to try and get south of the river over that bridge, try and avoid it. And if you are heading down towards the Chelsea area, that's going to be affected. So, as we were saying, if you are expecting people home, you're expecting people into work, because that's right in the nucleus, isn't it, of our public transport system, there is going to be quite a knock-on effect. And also, as well as it's strange because there's all reports coming in as we speak, and as well as the reports of the stabbing of the police officer and also of the shooting, there were also reports that a car had injured pedestrians on the bridge as well. Witnesses, though, also talking about hearing at least 4 gunshots, and armed police officers, as we say, are inside the Palace of Westminster. The Palace of Westminster on lockdown, and it will be very busy today because, of course, on Wednesday it's Prime Minister's Questions Day, so it will be a very, very busy day when most of the MPs from up and down the country will be in the Palace of Westminster, would have been earlier on for Prime Minister's Questions, and will have been there probably later today as well. And quite a few tourists. I mean, that whole yard, which is so heavily defended, which is why it's so strange to target that area, is a great tourist resort. So Parliament Square, of course, always with the statue of Mandela and tourists photographing that, always a great attraction. I suppose one of the things is it has been a very wet afternoon, so maybe not quite so many people standing in Parliament Square taking photographs as there usually would have been. But it's a magnet, isn't it, to tourists, that whole area. So whether it's a rainy day or not, it would have been very busy. Looking at the screens now, there I can see 7, 8, 9 police cars, all in front of those gates, those photograph gates. In fact, the lawn where so many reporters do pieces to camera, in vision for College Green, I think. Is it called College Green? College Green? One of them is called College Green, certainly. Well, that area is also in shot now. That's got something like 8 police cars surrounding it. So, yeah, very familiar area to many of us. And those gates that when you are doing the whole tourist trip and you look in and out, those are the very gates, I think, where the incident has occurred. And yes, now the camera is going across Parliament Square, past the Green. Nobody there. They seem to have cleared every tourist away from that area. So what we can see now, basically is so odd, Simon, isn't it? Seeing Parliament Square empty apart from police cars. Yes, it's very strange. And also what we can see, this is clearly somebody who's filmed this with a handheld mobile phone. And this is where, although I know that sometimes you kind of knock the Twitter and Facebook generation, this is where getting these kind of images so quickly would have been unheard of many years ago. The live live images we have of Westminster, though, showing some traffic moving through, but a whole host of that area cordoned off as a result of the what is described as a major security incident in the Westminster area on Westminster Bridge. And it is going to be one of those stories that is developing all the time. As you say, Joe, we're going to bring you travel news every 15 minutes and also full coverage on this as it breaks this afternoon. But we would love to hear from you. Many of you, I know, are working as cab drivers, either mini cabs or private hire. Many of you will be working in the area around Westminster in some of the many tall buildings around there. It may be that you've been out and about today and you can report in to us what you can see. We will hear from some of you, some of your stories to come on the programme this afternoon. But if you've missed this, the news, if you just joined us, is that shots are reported to have been fired close to the Houses of Parliament in central London. We are told that the whole area is currently on lockdown. Politicians and journalists have tweeted about hearing loud crashes outside the buildings, and witnesses say they saw people being treated for wounds and reported seeing a man with a knife in the grounds. There have been other people reporting from within Westminster, the Palace of Westminster, not confirmed by the BBC, that a police officer was stabbed, and also that a car or certainly some vehicle had injured pedestrians on Westminster Bridge. Some of this is news coming in. Some of it is confirmed by the police. Earlier, what I've said has been confirmed. Some of the latter bits of information is information we've got coming in, but as yet unconfirmed.
So don't forget, the number is 020 722 42000. If you're out there, if you are any of the cabbies listening to us at the moment around that surrounding area, or even the knock-on effect area, keep us up to date. 020 722 42000. This is from a listener who says, my thoughts are with everybody who's in that area at the moment. I used to work in government security, so I have some idea of what's going to be happening behind the scenes at the moment. I also have friends who are working in the offices above in the immediate area, but it seems they are all safe. Well, that's quite, I mean, there's a high rise all the way around. There must be loads of people who are still there, I assume, being told to stay there, because from what Simon and I can see, there's no one being led out of those buildings, but they are all in lockdown. It is 3:15. As we said, we will give you now traffic and travel every 15 minutes on BBC Radio London. We can go now to Billy for the latest.
Because of a major security alert outside the palaces of Westminster, you're being asked to avoid the Westminster area. Westminster Bridge is closed, Parliament Square is closed, Whitehall southbound closed too, Westminster Tube Station is also unavailable. Traffic is now being allowed out of Whitehall and off Westminster Bridge. There's quite a lot of buses stuck in the traffic there. So because of a security alert, worth avoiding the Westminster area. It's already very busy around Trafalgar Square and Whitehall anyway because of nearby roadworks. But closed, Westminster Bridge, Parliament Square, Whitehall southbound. We'll keep you up to date every 15 minutes, Joe.
Thank you very much indeed, Billy. It is me, Joe Good, and Simon Lederman at the moment, and Eddie's going to start drive a little bit earlier this afternoon. If you are tuning in and you think this is a bit of a change, it is because we have a breaking news story at the moment, an incident over at Westminster. And it involves the whole of Parliament, Westminster Palace, Westminster Bridge, and we are finding out as the story unravels what the knock-on effect is and what exactly has happened.
We will. And as we say, if you can certainly update us and update Eddie Nestor, who's going to take over the programme very shortly on 0207 224 2000, please do. We also have some eyewitnesses to come. We've also obviously got breaking news and some of the BBC's reporters we'll be hearing from too. But you are London, we are London, and we'd love to hear from you about what you can see, either if you're affected by the traffic or indeed if you're within the realms of the Palace of Westminster or buildings nearby. What you can see is all important because you are our eyes and ears.
BBC Radio London.
So, your query is concerning what?
Well, it's concerning Battersea Park.
Robert Elms.
That piece of bronze statuary kept on getting nicked.
You don't know who bought it, do you? You weren't involved personally.
Absolutely not.
Weekdays and Saturday mornings from 10.
There is an etiquette of the tube. Was it ever acceptable to sit on people's laps?
Catch up on BBC iPlayer Radio.
We were so crowded you couldn't stand up properly, so somebody would say, sit on my lap.
Really?
Yes, on my lap, and you did.
So it's all true.
Robert Elms, weekdays and Saturday mornings from 10.
On behalf of me and the coach, I thank for your services. Can you keep me sane with funny anecdotes and things like that?
And also, I'd like that as a Londoner, so thank you to you guys.
BBC Radio London.
Eddie Nestor's Drive Time, weekdays from 4.
Call 020 722 42000.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time. Please excuse me, forgot to press my button there. So immediate is everything. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time. Thanks very much to Joe and also to Simon. And as you might expect, it is a bit of a special Drive Time, unexpected, but we are dealing with an incident at the Houses of Parliament. At the minute, I'm looking at a car that appears to have gone into some railings. We know from the Commons leader that an officer has been attacked and a man has been shot. Conflicting reports coming in about another incident, but we will try and give you the details as and when we get it. If you, as Simon just said there, are around the area, if you've been inconvenienced, if you've seen something, if you've heard something, if you know something, we would welcome your contribution. 020 722 42000 is our number. You can text 81333 and start your message with the word London. George Henton was an eyewitness at the scene. George, thanks so much for talking to us. Tell us what you saw. Good afternoon to you, George.
Hello.
Good afternoon to you. Tell us what you saw.
Hi. Well, I've actually only just arrived, basically, so I didn't actually see very much. I'm at Parliament Square now, which is basically taped off by the police. There's a lot of tourists. There's some TV crews down here, and there's armed police surrounding the square. A London Air ambulance parked in the middle of the square, which is off, and a lot of flashing lights. But that's about as close as I can get at this stage.
Anybody talking around you about what perhaps happened?
I've probably seen less than you guys. I've seen some stuff on Twitter, but I don't necessarily want to just repeat what may...
No, don't do that. George, you stay safe. Let's go inside the chamber now, shall we? Dawn Butler, MP. Dawn, thanks so much for talking to us. What's the state of play where you are?
Well, we're currently on lockdown in the chamber, so lots of MPs are sat here because we just had a vote. So we went into the vote and then Parliament was suspended soon after the vote. So MPs were all sort of congregated in one place, really, and we're all here and just texting friends and family, so they're all texting us to find out how we all are.
When did you first get an idea that something wasn't right?
Well, I think we're just about to have the statement. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to call you back, Eddie.
Okay, we'll talk again. Thanks very much. That's how immediate this is. Dawn Butler in the chamber where a number of MPs are assembled. They are literally just about to get an announcement, to get a statement themselves about what happened. What we know, we will tell you as soon as we can confirm it. But the Speaker thus far saying that a police officer was attacked and somebody has been shot outside the House. Quentin Letts has offices overlooking the Houses of Parliament. Here's what he said.
We heard this sounded like a car crash, and we went to the windows to see what was happening, and a lot of members of the public running down the pavement, some of them screaming and shouting. And then we saw a thick-set man in black clothes come through the gates where people would normally drive cars into New Palace Yard. New Palace Yard is just below Big Ben. And this man had something in his hand. It looked like a stick of some sort. And he was challenged by a couple of policemen in yellow jackets. And one of the yellow-jacketed policemen fell down. And we could see the man in black moving his arm in a way that suggested he was either stabbing or striking the yellow-jacketed policeman. And one of the policemen then ran to get help, which was very, very quick to come. And as this attacker was running towards the entrance used by MPs to go into the House of Commons, as he was running, he ran about, I'd say 15 yards perhaps. Two plainclothes guys with guns shouted at him, uttered what sounded like a warning. He ignored it, and they shot 2 or 3 times, and he fell.
Well, that's Quentin Letzer telling us what he saw, getting unconfirmed reports. A car, which I can see against some railings. People were injured, between 4 and 12 people injured by a car. Will Geddes is a security expert over in New York. Will, I'd expected to talk to you about whether I could get my oversized mobile phone through the security cordon, but this is a completely different thing, right? But always, I suppose, with us being at our second highest level, something like this was likely to happen at some stage.
Yeah, absolutely, Eddie. We've been anticipating something like this on some level or scale for at least the last couple of years. And it's really only down to the best efforts and the capabilities and experience of our own security services in intercepting so many plots, ideally at the most perfect stage to be able to ensure the protection of the general public. But again, what we're seeing right now with the limited information that's coming out, and it's always sketchy in these first few instances post an attack of this type, that would appear that it could be a lone wolf, and this is always the threat that we've been concerned about, the individual that simply turns up on the day and carries out an attack.
And in that happening, there is no way that you could ever defend against that, really, is there?
Well, to a certain extent, yes, you can, and it really comes down to the levels of vigilance and situational awareness, whether that be technology or whether it be human, i.e. the security that is protecting that installation or that building, in being able to identify what we call combat indicators or unusual behavior in a possible suspect. But if you do have in a very condensed and populated area, like outside the Houses of Parliament, where you've got a large number of tourists, as well as obviously commuters that are walking through, you only need to have that one person that steps out of the crowd. But from what we're hearing so far, Eddie, the responses by the authorities in suppressing this threat were excellent, and they reacted very, very quickly in trying to contain the problem. But at the moment, they're going to be looking to see whether it's just one individual or whether there are more involved.
Yeah, thanks so much for talking to us. Will Geddes, the security expert, talking to us about the fact that we had, in some way, shape or form, the security experts had been waiting for something, expecting like this. I am presently looking at a video. I do have to describe it to you. There are a number of people lying in the road. People are running to assist them. As you would imagine, there are many, many cars. Not sure whether it's one or two. Confused reports coming, and certainly one person has been shot. Policeman has been injured, and we definitely know that Parliament is in lockdown. And if you have business around Westminster and you're driving, I'd suggest that unless you do, that's not really a place to go. We'll have more details from our Travel Island with Billy Reeves very, very shortly. The Speaker of the House of Commons is a man called David Lidington, and he has just updated MPs.
There has been a serious incident within the estate. It seems that a police officer has been stabbed, that the alleged assailant was shot by armed police. An ambulance is currently attending the scene to remove the casualties. There are also reports of further violent incidents in the vicinity of the Palace of Westminster, but I hope colleagues on all sides will appreciate that it would be wrong of me here to go into further details until we have confirmation from the police and from the House security authorities about what is going on.
So an ambulance has just left Old Palace Yard, and the shadow leader of the Commons, Valerie Vaz, has also spoken to MPs.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the police officer, and to thank the police and all the security services and all the staff for looking after us so well.
The injuries that I've been telling you about in concern to that car happened on Westminster Bridge. Don Bryant is a former BBC political correspondent who now works for a Labour MP at the Palace of Westminster, and he describes here what he saw.
There was a person clad in kind of dark clothing lying on the ground with somebody pointing what I assume to be a gun at him. A little way away there was somebody in a high-vis jacket who I assume to be a policeman on the ground. but he appeared to be conscious and talking to somebody. And then very quickly we were all shooed in.
Of course, so bizarrely, today, as I woke up, there were a minute's silence at the airport where they were marking the atrocity that took place at the airport in Belgium. That first anniversary taking place today. Not sure whether things are under control, but we are now told that armed police are inside the Palace of Westminster. Commons leader assailant has said that the assailant has been shot by police. This is BBC Radio London's Drive Time. It's slightly earlier. Apologies if you tune in to listen to Joe Good. There has been some sort of terrorist incident, some incident that's it seems to have caused injuries, and we're not sure about loss of life yet. But I'm asking, if you're in and around the West End, if you are around the Palace of Westminster, if you're around the House of Commons, outside the tube station, if you're driving a bus, a taxi, if your way has been barred, if you've seen or heard something, you need to be our eyes and ears, and we'd love to know what you've seen and what you've heard. The number 020 722 40,000. You can, of course, text 81333. Ebbs is in Westminster. Good afternoon to you, Ebbs.
Good afternoon, Eddie. How are you?
I'm all right. It's not what we expected, but then it is in a kind of a way, isn't it? So tell us what you've seen.
So I am St Thomas is to my left, and Big Ben is up ahead. So I'm on the south side of Westminster Bridge at the moment. Obviously, everything is on lockdown. No one can get through to the exit to St Thomas's onto Westminster Bridge. There are a line of London ambulances and police cars all lined up on both sides of the bridge as well. So there's lots of police. The fire engine has just gone by, so that has gone up to Westminster Bridge as well. So and there are a couple of buses. I think it's the 159 bus, I think, is up there as well. There are two buses on either side in both north and south directions that both can't move. And
so just let's be clear, nothing is moving on there, right? That bridge is closed. That they've stopped everything.
Yes, completely closed. So there's diversions going around the Westminster Park Plaza. Everything has to go onto York Road on the south side, and on the I'm presuming, I can't see it, but on the north side at Parliament Square, everything has been diverted in all other directions apart from going south along Westminster Bridge.
Okay, so are you trying to get? Can you see a cordon?
Yes, I'm right next to the cordon as you speak.
And just do it for us. I think we more or less know that area of town. How far away from the incident are you?
Well, because of I'm thinking that the actual incident is halfway up the bridge. So the London ambulances, the police cars, and the buses, they're all lined up across. So our view is quite restricted, but obviously something has happened. I think it's probably about midway up the bridge, so halfway up Westminster Bridge.
Are you in a car or are you walking?
I'm walking. You know, I do the papers at Petrie Hoskin on a Friday.
Right.
So I just happen to be going from one meeting to another. And I was listening to Simon and Joe, who I both work with, and I just happened to be...
thank you. Well, I'm sorry to get to know you under these circumstances, but I'm immensely grateful, as is the whole of London, I would imagine, for you shining some light on this. Is there a sense of panic? Is there a sense of calm? Is there a sense that we are here because something else might happen? What are you feeling?
No, I think as a Londoner, you know what we're like as Londoners. In times of crisis, we do stay quite calm.
Yes.
People are just looking. I think we feel safe because we have all the police officers around. We do feel safe. There is a high police, ambulance, and fire engine presence. So the emergency services, the security services are all here. So we do feel safe because of that. We just have to let them do their jobs, and I'm sure all will become clearer as time goes on.
Ebbs, stay safe, but we may well come back and talk to you. I'd love to know whether people are being informed, how people are feeling, whether people are coming around, and what the mood is like there. And thank you very much for talking to us, Ebbs. They're giving us the very latest from where he is. Where are you? What do you see? Are you around the area at all? Have you got any sense at all as to what has happened? You're going to get more detail very, very shortly, but let me give you that number over again. A special drive time starting earlier because of an incident that's happened at the Palace of Westminster. 0207 224 2000. You can, of course, text 81333 and start your message with the word London at news headlines at 3:30. Read for us this afternoon by Lucinda Bowden.
The Palace of Westminster is in lockdown following a shooting outside Portcullis House. The Commons leader David Lidington has told MPs a police officer has been stabbed and the assailant shot by armed police. Scotland Yard was called to Westminster Bridge amid the reports that several people were injured by a car. Don Brind is a former BBC political correspondent who now works for a Labour MP at the Palace of Westminster. He told BBC Radio London what he saw.
There was a person clad in kind of dark clothing lying on the ground with somebody pointing what I assume to be a gun at him. A little way away there was somebody in a high-vis jacket who I assume to be a policeman on the ground, but he appeared to be conscious and talking to somebody. And then very quickly we were all shooed in.
In other news, Thames Water has been given a record fine of more than £20 million for polluting the river with 1.5 billion litres of raw sewage, which was allowed to flow into the Thames between 2013 and 2014. A murder investigation has begun following the death of a 19-year-old who was shot while sitting in a car in East London. Officers were called to reports of a man unconscious on Ilford Lane last night. Despite efforts by paramedics to save him, he died at the scene. No one has been arrested. Meanwhile, a man has been arrested for making a bomb threat at a London restaurant in 1999. The 36-year-old was detained after a forensic review of evidence seized from the fast food restaurant in Knightsbridge in November 18 years ago. Police say the threat was believed to have been made by a far-right organisation. And London's weather bright with outbreaks of rain showers for the remainder of the afternoon, highs of 9 degrees Celsius. BBC Radio London travel now with Billy Reeves.
Because of a major security alert at the Houses of Parliament, you're being asked to avoid the Westminster area. Closures then, Parliament Square is closed, all the approaches to Victoria Street, Westminster Bridge in both directions, Victoria Embankment from Embankment Station, Whitehall southbound, Millbank and Great George Street, already very busy around the area because of roadworks near Strand. So worth avoiding Westminster if you can. Westminster Tube Station is also closed and there's no Thames Clippers in the area. So major security alert outside the Houses of Parliament means that there is some traffic, buses and so on. They're gradually being released as things will gradually get back to normal, hopefully. But at the moment, you're being asked to avoid the Westminster area because of closures in the area. A4 out of town between Jolly Wagoners and the Avenue in Cranford is closed because of a gas leak presently. Public transport, Westminster Tube Station closed. No service on the Metropolitan line between Wembley Park and Aldgate. So a reminder then, avoid the Westminster area. Security alert at the Houses of Parliament means some major road closures around the Westminster area, and we'll keep you up to date every 15 minutes over here. Billy Reeves, BBC Radio London Travel. Your next update from me at 1:45.
BBC Radio London.
If you're a gentleman listener and you're thinking, why are you focusing on the women? What about me?
The Vanessa Feltz Breakfast Show.
Is working at 70, is that the making of you?
I'm like you. I haven't made my mind up yet what I'm going to do when I grow up.
Weekdays from 7.
Is it effective? I would say not. And is it proportionate? Again, no, because it's not universally applied.
How can we take any steps at all without publicising them?
The best lesson the past has taught us is that next time it's going to be different.
Putting Londoners first.
Why would you use a map, for goodness sake? You might as well look at the stars to get yourself round Soho.
The Vanessa Feltz Breakfast Show.
Your example is very mechanical. Navigation is very cognitive.
Weekdays from 7.
What are you doing that we should copy? Tell us what we should do.
BBC Radio London.
Good afternoon and welcome. This is Drive Time on BBC Radio London on a frequency of 94.9. Apologies for fans of Joe's. Joe will be back here, of course, tomorrow from 1 p.m. But there has been an incident in the House of Commons. We understand a police officer has been stabbed. The assailant has been shot by police. Parliament is in lockdown. The Prime Minister is safe, and Scotland Yard have literally just tweeted they are treating this as a terrorist attack until they know otherwise. Those are our headlines, as you just heard from Billy Reeves. Westminster Bridge is closed. A number of specialist firearms equipment, fire fighters, ambulance, emergency crews are there. When we've been watching and reporting on our preparedness and all those tests that take place, I guess this is the kind of day they're preparing for. And we will keep you updated. We'll give you all the information we have as soon as we get it. But just to repeat, there has been an incident being described by Scotland Yard as a terrorist incident at the Houses of Parliament. A police officer has been stabbed. The assailant has been shot. The air ambulance has just left Parliament. It is indeed in lockdown. Prime Minister is safe. And as I say, Scotland Yard treating this as a terrorist incident. The former Polish Minister for Foreign Affairs was in a taxi crossing Westminster Bridge to the South Bank when he heard a crash.
I heard what I thought was just a collision, and then I looked through the window of the taxi and I saw someone down, obviously in great distress, and then I saw a second person down, and I started filming, and then I saw 3 more people down, one of them bleeding profusely. So what I saw was an incident involving at least 5 people seriously injured.
That's Radoslaw Sikorski there, who is the former Polish Minister for Foreign Affairs. A journalist for the Daily Mail newspaper, Quentin Letts, whose office overlooks the scene, said he saw a man wearing black clothes arrive at New Palace Yard.
This man had something in his hand. It looked like a stick of some sort. And he was challenged by a couple of policemen in yellow jackets, and one of the yellow-jacketed policemen fell down, and we could see the man in black moving his arm in a way that suggested he was either stabbing or striking the yellow-jacketed policeman. And one of the policemen then ran to get help, which was very, very quick to come. And as this attacker was running towards the entrance used by MPs to go into the House of Commons. As he was running, he ran about, I'd say 15 yards perhaps. 2 plainclothes guys with guns shouted at him, uttered what sounded like a warning. He ignored it, and they shot 2 or 3 times, and he fell.
Richard Tice described the scene as he came out of Westminster Tube.
I was ushered onto the bridge, Westminster Bridge, where I saw, looking up and down the length of the whole bridge, at least 8 figures lying on the ground on the west pavement of the bridge. And it appears that a car mounted the pavement on the south side of the bridge and, did deliberately strike into numerous individuals, leaving them on the ground before crashing in at the north end of the bridge.
We're hearing between 4 and 12 people have been hurt. And when we get more reports on those and their injuries, we will bring them to you. Security expert Will Geddes told me the events at Westminster haven't come as a surprise.
We've been anticipating something like this on some level or scale for at least the last couple of years. And it's really only down to the best efforts and the capabilities and experience of our own security services in intercepting so many plots, ideally at the most perfect stage to be able to ensure the protection of the general public. But again, what we're seeing right now with the limited information that's coming out, and it's always sketchy in these first few instances post an attack of this type, that it would appear that it could be a lone wolf, and this is always the threat that we've been concerned about, the individual that simply turns up on the day and carries out an attack.
Well, Scotland Yard said in a statement police are asking people to avoid the following areas: Parliament Square, Whitehall, Westminster Bridge, Lambeth Bridge, Victoria Street, up to the junction with Broadway and the Victoria Embankment up to Embankment Tube. This is to allow the emergency services to deal with the ongoing incident. Officers, including firearms officers, remain on the scene, and we are treating this as a terrorist incident until we know otherwise. We thank the public for their assistance. More details on the travel details coming from Billy Reeves very shortly. Let's go and speak to reporter Callum May. Callum, where are you exactly?
I'm as close to Parliament Square as I can possibly get. I'm just between Westminster Abbey and the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Centre. I'm police tape which is steadily being moved back to clear the area. A short while. 4 police units in vans turned up at Parliament Square, and the London Air Ambulance, which had been parked in the middle of Parliament Square, took off. The helicopter you could hear above me probably is the Metropolitan Police helicopter. Earlier on, much the same thing happened at the bottom end of Whitehall, the Parliament end of Whitehall, if you were, where crowds were moved back and the police told people it was a sterile area. There is a suspect vehicle parked outside Parliament, said a policeman. From here, I can see, and bear in mind I'm some way away, I can see a grey saloon car, and it's surrounded by white police vehicles. But I can't tell you any more about it than that, other than one policeman has said it's a suspect vehicle, and it's parked immediately outside Parliament, outside the carriage gate entrance to Parliament.
And is there a sense of calm where you are, Callum?
People are staying calm here. Yeah, they are being told to move back steadily and surely by the police, and they're doing so. There are quite a few tourists just hanging around. It's a very popular area with tourists, Westminster Abbey and Parliament and the other buildings around here, as we know, and everyone seems to be remaining calm. I spoke to one man, an American tourist called Bradford Buck, and he said that he had seen a person lying on the ground who didn't look in a very good way. He didn't get a good enough look to see what that person looked like. He said he thought it was a man, and there were armed police surrounding him. Other than that, it's just this steady movement with the police back from Parliament Square. There are, I can count, 1, 2, 3, 4 officers with a stretch of blue and white police tape, just slowly moving people back, and everyone is doing as they're told, walking now past Westminster Abbey up towards the Methodist Central Hall up Victoria Street.
For Callum, stay safe, and we may well come back and talk to you. Thank you so much for you down there. Callum May, who is there right near where all the interviews are done, if you're wondering where it is, near the Queen Elizabeth Hall there, talking about what you can say, being moved back steadily by police, a suspect vehicle. You can see a grey vehicle there. Talked about an American tourist saying that he'd seen somebody lying on the ground who didn't look to be in a particularly good way. This tweet from Guy's and St Thomas NHS Foundation Trust. Guy's and St Thomas says that staff and visitors at St Thomas and Evelina Hospital, London Hospital, are being advised to remain on site during the current security incident. I reckon that certainly would be one of the hospitals, wouldn't it? That would have to be ready for whatever was happening. And still a bit unclear, but I'll give you the headlines again in case you just joined us. Good afternoon to you. Very quickly, a police officer has been stabbed outside the Houses of Parliament. We know the assailant has been shot. Parliament at the minute is in lockdown. The Prime Minister is safe. The Leader of the Commons has given a statement clarifying the position. We spoke to Dawn Butler, who is in lockdown in the chamber. Scotland Yard say they are treating this as a terrorist attack until they know any differently. A list of areas to avoid highlighted, I imagine, right now in our BBC Radio London Travel by Billy Reeves.
Yes, the Met Police are asking people to avoid Parliament Square, Whitehall, Westminster Bridge, Lambeth Bridge, Victoria Street, Victoria Embankment, up to Embankment Tube Station. Buses in Westminster are having to terminate early because of this ongoing security alert and police investigation at Westminster Bridge and outside the palaces of Westminster. London Underground are accepting bus tickets in Zone 1. Westminster Tube Station is closed. Thames Clippers not available in the area then. So as we've been hearing in the news, because of a major security alert outside the palaces of Westminster, some major road closures in the area, including no access to Parliament Square, and you're being asked to avoid the area whilst trapped traffic and buses are released. Billy Reeves, BBC Radio London. More from me just before 4 o'clock.
Eddie Nestor's Drive Time. Weekdays from 4.
Call 020 722 42000.
Good afternoon to you. Apologies now to anybody tuning in to listen to Joe Good. Joe has just let us come in because there has been an incident at the House of Parliament. Our reporter Anna O'Neill has headed towards the... Where exactly have you got to, Anna?
Well, Eddie, you can probably hear me on Whitehall. You can probably hear the scream of ambulances. They've just come, two of them have just come rushing up Whitehall past Downing Street, which is where we've been shepherded to. Actually, we've been shepherded a bit further than Downing Street. Now we're actually at the corner of Horse Guards Avenue. We've got as far as Downing Street and the police moved us back further. In terms of what I can see, Eddie, well, not very much, apart from a lot of people standing around and the police tape and lots and lots of blue sirens. But I've just been speaking to a lady. Her name is Kirsten Hurrell. She owns the newsstand on Westminster Bridge. And this is what she told me about what she saw in the last hour.
I was actually in our business, which is opposite the incident, and opposite when the incident occurred. And as I said, I was there for a while the emergency services came in, but then we were told to evacuate because it's a bit more serious than they think. So
you didn't see anything from where you were?
I saw the car crash into the fencing, yes. Because it's right opposite where our business is.
And so, did you see people who were injured? Because we're hearing various reports.
No, I didn't see anything that happened. I was told there were some injuries on the bridge, but obviously that's beyond our sight. And all I could see is after the car had crashed, there was a cyclist laying on the pavement, and that's all he'd been crashed onto the pavement. And then, of course, all the emergency vehicles came and blocked my view, so I couldn't see. But there was a lot of steam coming out of the car. I thought the car might be going into flames, but it looked like steam rather than smoke. And anyway, I called the police, but a number of people have been calling the police at a precise moment anyway.
Yeah.
So
what building were you working in?
I'm not in a building. My business is bang opposite the incident.
That's Anna O'Neill. We'll get more reports, as you would imagine, from Anna O'Neill. But people are being pushed further and further back. The Conservative MP Grant Shapps has told us here at the BBC what he saw.
Well, I was walking through the cloisters to go vote, which is what happens when the division bell goes off. That's the bell that rings when there's a vote. A lot of the MPs are over in Portcullis House area, which is where the officers are. And as we're streaming through to vote, we're in the outside bit, in what's called New Palace Yard. You'll have maps of that there. And I hear a commotion, a bit of shouting maybe. And as I look around, I see the police have their guns drawn, and they're pointing at towards the gates direction. And then I hear four shots. I think 1, 2, 3, 4 in quick succession, one after the other. That was the moment that I guess the assailants were shot. And then immediately there was a police officer with guns and very, very quickly right by our side said, get down. So these MPs are walking through. We all hit the ground and get down, get back. And we make our way inside to sort of behind the walls of the palace, I guess you could say, and then up into the chamber. So that was the chain of events as I saw it.
Conservative MP Grant Shapps there talking about what he saw. Now, if you've ever been before, I don't know if you have, but it is airport-style security. You go to one end and you take everything off, belt and stuff, you take your coins out. I don't know how near to that point this person got, but certainly I'm looking at a car that's crashed into railings, and there are social media videos that I've been looking at which seem to show people lying on the floor. We don't know how badly injured. We just heard an ambulance take off and saw one take off, air ambulance take off. We're hearing from guys at St Thomas's. They've been told not to leave. When we get more news of those injuries of the pedestrians on Westminster Bridge, we'll be sure to bring it to you. But that car is now against railings outside of Parliament. As I say, Parliament's in lockdown. Bob Blackman MP, I'm guessing you're there. Is everybody okay, first of all, Bob?
As far as we know, yes. We've got reports, obviously, of pedestrians being run down by a 4x4 on Westminster Bridge, and then the 4x4 crashing through attempting to crash through the gates, and one individual assaulting and stabbing a police officer. I think the assailant we hear has been shot by police. We understand that both the police officer and the assailant have been airlifted by air ambulance, but we believe that the assailant has been shot dead. We understand the police officer is in a serious but stable condition.
How are things where you are?
Well, the Parliament is in lockdown, so MPs, we were in the middle of a division when the incident occurred. And so what happens is there's a very well-practiced security drill.
I was about to ask you that, because it is not the sort of thing that you would normally talk about. But are there alarms? Are there tests? Are there protocols? Are there procedures?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Parliament has a very heavy security presence. There's a well-rehearsed route of what to do in the event of an incident of this type. And obviously that's come into operation. Everyone is calm. Staff are in their offices. Everyone's told to stay where you are for obvious reasons, and to lock the doors and lock the windows and make sure that no one that you don't know comes in, which is obviously the right thing to do.
Are the police in the room with you? Are the armed police in there in the chamber with you?
The police, we're basically, I don't want to go into details of the area, because it might breach.
Okay, no, fair enough. But you feel safe, and everything went in accordance with the plans as they've been laid out.
Absolutely, yeah.
In terms of those, I imagine those phones, those pages have been going off, family trying to make sure everybody's okay. A lot of reassurance for people like you to do, right?
Yeah, so we've had to make sure, obviously, that staff are okay, and equally that our loved ones know that we're all okay. So, obviously everyone's been busy texting or phoning to let everyone know what the position is. So, I think we're just very grateful for the security forces and the work they do for us.
And we're very grateful for you for sparing some time to let London and Londoners know exactly what's happening, and we appreciate that. Bob Blackman MP there talking to us from lockdown in the Houses of Parliament, where an incident has taken place today. We believe a police officer has been stabbed. That officer now airlifted to a hospital to deal with these injuries, and from Bob we're hearing the assailant shot and is believed to have been killed. I'm looking at pictures of Westminster Bridge where a number of casualties. It's really difficult to count. Some being led away on stretchers, some on wheelchairs, where a car has reportedly rammed into a number of people, anywhere between 4 and 12. This is a time, of course, where we try to find out what's happening. Baroness Jenny Jones. Jenny, where are you? And are you okay?
Well, actually, I have just moved from an area they were clearing out, and I've come up to my office. I had a young intern here, and I thought I can't leave her on her own, locked in her office. So I'm in a small office in the heart of the Palace of Westminster at the moment.
When's the first that you knew, Jenny?
Well, I was sitting down looking at Twitter, and the reports started coming in. And then, of course, we switched on the news. We looked out a window, and lots of gates were being closed. And then they opened the gates and let a car through, and I imagine that was Theresa May coming out of Black Rod's entrance.
Yeah,
so
getting her to 10 Downing Street, right?
Yeah, so we're totally dependent on watching TV, because most of us don't have a view of anywhere useful.
Yeah, so you didn't hear any of these. I mean, what we're hearing is that there were at least 4 gunshots. You didn't hear any of those, right?
No, absolutely not, because the Lords are all at the far south end of the building, and everything was happening in the north. So, no, we weren't aware of anything. And I sort of think probably that the House of Lords isn't quite as big a target as the House of Commons.
Well, I mean, I don't know, for many people they're one of the same, and certainly we don't want to give anybody any ideas. Isn't it interesting? Here's a day where I probably would have been talking to you about your phone being tapped and all sorts of things going on, and the agenda's completely changed, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. And of course, it sounds like a police officer's been shot in the line of duty, or knifed in the line of duty, and I do feel incredibly sorry for him. That's nobody should have to expect that.
No, of course. We just wanted to hear that you were okay and find out what was happening around you, and look after that intern, Jenny. Thank you so much. Baroness Jenny Jones there talking to us from the House of Lords. She has gone to be with an intern who was there for the first day, or one imagined first week was locked down. We are on air early. This is Drive Time on BBC Radio London, frequency being 94.9. Apologies to Joe Good fans, but there has been an attack on the Palace of Westminster. Police are treating it as a terrorist attack until they know otherwise. The staff at Guy's and St Thomas's have been told not to move. There are a number of people being removed from Westminster Bridge now, as I say, on wheelchairs, stretchers, a number of ambulances. The bridge itself is on lockdown. It is closed. A number of emergency vehicles are on there. Billy Reeves has details. There are a number of areas that you're being told to stay away from. Please listen to Billy. He'll be speaking to you in about a minute or so's time. Anna O'Neill has made her way to the mall. She's trying to talk to as many people as possible. We've got our reporters all around, but we need you. You are our eyes and ears. Where were you? Where have you been? Black cabbies, what's happening around there? What's the word on that jungle telegraph you've got going on? We know a police officer has been attacked. Air ambulance taking him, hopefully, or her, to somewhere where they can be treated. We believe the assailant to have been shot. A number of people have been injured when a car rammed into them. There are armed police inside the House of Commons. The Prime Minister is safe. Just some of the headlines. You hear a little more with our newsreader in a little while. But first, let's go to Travel Island. Billy Reeves, what's happening in the BBC Radio London Travel?
As we'll be hearing in the news, the police were called at 20 to 3 to reports of an incident on Westminster Bridge. Police are asking people to avoid the following areas: Parliament Square, Whitehall, Westminster Bridge, Lambeth Bridge, Victoria Street up to the junction with Broadway, and the Victoria Embankment up to Embankment Tube. All of the entrances and exits to Parliament Square are currently closed because of a major incident outside the palaces of Westminster, and you're being asked to avoid the area. The tube station, Westminster Tube Station, is closed, and there's no Thames Clippers on the river in the area. Buses are on diversion. Some were trapped on Westminster Bridge and on Whitehall. They're now gradually being released. So avoid the Westminster area, both sides of the bridge, please, if you can, over the next few hours or so. But we'll keep you up to date every 15 minutes until 7 or so, and then every half an hour, and we'll keep you up to date here with rolling news coverage of a major incident in and outside the palaces of Westminster this afternoon. Means major traffic problems in the area. There's already some roadworks, of course, nearby, which are adding to the problems. Buckingham Gate, Lower Grosvenor Place, Strand, Charing Cross, Waterloo Bridge already affected by nearby roadworks. A4 into town through Cranford from the High Street to the Jolly Wagoners, closed on the westbound side. So you're down to one lane in Brentford on the A4 as well, between Boston Manor Road and Ealing Road in the roadworks. Public transport, no Thames River boat then. At London Eye Millennium Pier, Westminster Millennium Pier, the back part of the river is closed as a result of a police incident on Westminster Bridge and outside the palaces of Westminster. Westminster Tube Station is closed. At the moment, there's no Metropolitan line, Wembley Park to Aldgate. So to repeat, and as we'll be hearing in the news, Parliament Square and nearby roads are shut at the moment because of a major police incident on Westminster Bridge and outside the Houses of Parliament. Billy Reeves, BBC Radio London. More from me in 15.
Online, on digital radio and TV, and on 94.9 FM.
London's radio station.
BBC Radio London.
London's news at 4 o'clock. I'm Lucinda Bowden. The Met Police are treating an attack on a police officer outside the Palace of Westminster as a terror incident. Both Houses of Parliament are in lockdown and business has been suspended after the officer was stabbed and the alleged assailant shot by armed police. It is understood the officer is in a serious but stable condition following the attack. That's according to the MP for Harrow East, Bob Blackman. The shadow leader of the Commons, Valerie Vaz, spoke to MPs.
Our thoughts and prayers are with the police officer, and to thank the police and all the security services and all the staff for looking after us so well.
Transport for London says Westminster Underground Station has been closed as a precautionary measure, and staff and visitors at St Thomas's and Evelina hospitals are being advised to remain on site. A journalist for the Daily Mail newspaper, Quentin Letts, whose office overlooks the scene, said he saw a man wearing black clothes arrive at New Palace Yard.
This man had something in his hand. It looked like a stick of some sort. And he was challenged by a couple of policemen in yellow jackets, and one of the yellow-jacketed policemen fell down, and we could see the man in black moving his arm in a way that suggested he was either stabbing or striking the yellow-jacketed policeman. And one of the policemen then ran to get help. And as this attacker was running towards the entrance used by MPs, two plainclothes guys with guns uttered what sounded like a warning. He ignored it, and they shot 2 or 3 times, and he fell.
Eyewitnesses reported seeing a black SUV driving into several people on Westminster Bridge before crashing into railings. It's thought between 4 and 12 have been injured. The former Polish Foreign Minister, Radosław Sikorski, was travelling across Westminster Bridge and saw the car hit a number of people.
I heard what I thought was just a collision, and then I looked through the window of the taxi and I saw someone down, obviously in great distress, and then I saw a second person down, and then I saw 3 more people down, one of them bleeding profusely. So what I saw was an incident involving at least 5 people seriously injured. Mowing down, I saw 5 people down.
The security expert Will Geddes has spoke to Eddie Nesta earlier, and he described the events as Westminster have not come